Thank you for joining us. Here are the weekly highlights of Arakan. Civilian dies after Junta air raid on Kyeintali Town. Rice prices in Sittwe surged to nearly 300,000 jets per bag amid monsoon inflation. Death toll rises to 10 after Junta airstrikes on Kyauktaw. Family demands recapture of escaped child rape suspect in Pauktaw. Junta-linked supply controls fuel food crisis in Kyaukphyu. Survey finds 55% of Arakanese youth unemployed amid conflict. For over 2 years, the fires of conflict have swept across Arakan state as the Arakan army relentlessly presses forward with its offensives against the Myanmar junta. Between June 1st and June 7th of 2026, the region witnessed critical shifts on both the front lines and the home front. Here are the key developments shaping the rapidly escalating military and humanitarian situation in Arakan. Civilian dies after junta air raid on Kyeintali Town. A 45-year-old civilian has died from injuries sustained during a series of Myanmar military junta airstrikes on Kyeintali Town and nearby Kyauktaw village in southern Arakan State's Kyauktaw Township. Medical and local sources confirmed Saturday. The death brings the toll from Friday's aerial attack to 1 killed and 5 others seriously injured, several of whom remain in critical condition at local medical facilities. The deceased has been identified as Uwe Yamin, a resident of Kyauktaw village. According to consolidated operational logs from June 26, a junta jet fighter carried out a low-altitude strike over Junta-linked town at around 3:10 p.m., dropping 2 500-pound bombs. Minutes later, at approximately 3 p.m., the same aircraft struck a monastic compound and nearby school buildings in Kyauktaw village, causing severe destruction and civilian harm. The 5 injured civilians under treatment include Ma Song Him Mankan, 18, from Ward No. 12 of Junta-linked town, along with Mauntumetu, 10, Ma So Myamu, 13, Usan Min, 35, and Upuni, 75, all from Kyauktaw village. The strike represents a further escalation in an ongoing aerial campaign by the military junta across Kyauktaw Township throughout June. Early reports showed a June 23rd air raid on Kyauktaw village that wounded 4 civilians, while a June 20 strike on central Kyeintali injured 2 others. Humanitarian monitors say the regime has maintained near daily airstrikes throughout the month, targeting populated areas and territories under or adjacent to Arakan army control. Heavy aerial attacks have also been reported in Kyauktaw, Maungdaw, Kyaukphyu, Ramri, and Kyauktaw townships, contributing to rising civilian casualties across the region. Rice prices in Sittwe surged to nearly 300,000 jets per bag amid monsoon inflation. Wholesale rice prices in junta-controlled capital of Arakan state have surged close to 300,000 jets per bag during the monsoon season, worsening an already severe food insecurity crisis and contributing to rising urban crime, local merchants said Wednesday. Retailers and supply chain sources said the price spike is being driven by rising fuel costs and unstable maritime transport fees affecting supply routes. Sittwe remains heavily dependent on cargo shipments from Yangon to sustain its food supply. However, the local economy is under strain amid restrictions on movement and trade. Internally displaced persons and low-income residents face widespread unemployment alongside rapidly rising living costs. Sittwe residents said worsening economic conditions are contributing to rising petty theft and robberies in the Arakan state capital. The military junta continues to enforce strict restrictions on land and sea transport routes into Sittwe, allowing only controlled shipping from Yangon for essential goods. Air transport for commercial cargo and medical supplies remains banned, while civilian movement out of the city is also restricted. Humanitarian sources said aid supplies for displaced populations in Sittwe have been reduced, worsening living conditions. Death toll rises to 10 after junta airstrikes on Kyauktaw. The death toll from a devastating junta airstrike on Kyauktaw town has risen to 10 after another critically injured civilian died from severe blast injuries, rights monitors confirmed Thursday. The latest victim was identified as Ula Aungjo, 65, from Yama Ward in Kyauktaw. Local medical sources said he died on June 24th while receiving emergency treatment for multiple fractures and shrapnel injuries sustained during the June 17th airstrike. His death followed that of Do Ma'ela, 64, from Pauktaw Ward, who died at a medical facility on June 19th. Of the 18 civilians who suffered severe injuries in the initial attack, continued deaths have raised the confirmed civilian death toll to 10. The attack took place at around 3 p.m. on June 17th, when a formation of 4 junta jet fighters conducted an air raid over Kyauktaw town and nearby Lamador village. The aircraft dropped multiple unguided bombs on densely populated areas, including civilian markets and residential zones, facing continued territorial losses in western Myanmar. The military junta has increasingly relied on air power, with repeated strikes targeting civilian areas and infrastructure. The ongoing aerial campaign has damaged villages, urban areas, and religious sites across Arakan State, causing rising civilian casualties, including among women and children. The air campaign continues across multiple areas. On June 24th, a junta jet fighter struck the border town of Maungdaw, which is under Arakan Army administration, injuring 2 high school students and damaging civilian homes. Family demands recapture of escaped child rape suspect in Pauktaw. Relatives of an 8-year-old rape victim in Arakan State's Pauktaw Township are demanding the immediate recapture of a suspect who escaped from local law enforcement custody 4 months ago, according to independent monitoring sources on Friday. The case has remained unsolved in the administrative area controlled by the Arakan Army. The victim's family said that although they submitted formal appeals to the Department of Law Enforcement and Public Security DLEPS, authorities have stopped active efforts to track down the fugitive. According to legal records, the incident occurred on March 3rd when an 8-year-old girl from Paduche village was sexually assaulted. The suspect was identified as Utran Aungshe, 45, from nearby Thaiboshe village. Security personnel arrested Utran Aungshe the following morning. However, the suspect later escaped from custody due to alleged negligence by local DLEPS officers and remains at large. Although charges were filed through, authorities have not publicly disclosed the specific legal classifications applied to the case. Under DLEPS legal guidelines, Section 376, 3rd of the Penal Code states that a person convicted of raping a girl under the age of 12 can face life imprisonment or a 20-year prison sentence, along with financial penalties. Women rights advocates in Arakan State have criticized weaknesses in the justice system and a lack of transparency surrounding sexual violence cases. Junta-linked supply controls fuel crisis in Kyaukphyu. Military officers and junta department officials in the junta-controlled port town of Kyaukphyu have allegedly established a monopoly over import channels, driving up food prices and worsening economic hardship for local residents. Sources report, since the military blockade isolated Kyaukphyu at the end of 2023, residents have depended heavily on limited maritime cargo shipments and air freight routes from Yangon for essential supplies. Local traders said a monthly allocation of 3 cargo vessels is being controlled by junta-linked officials and affiliated merchants, restricting access for independent businesses. Local sources said the situation intensified in late 2025 after Captain Kyaukphyu, also known as Dead Sea, an officer from the Light Infantry Battalion No. 34, based in Kyaukphyu, took control of the Township General Administration Department's import licensing system. Since then, import permits have reportedly been limited to military-linked businesses. The restricted supply chain has severely weakened the purchasing power of low-income families, with growing numbers of displaced and vulnerable residents struggling to afford basic food. Local monitors reported a rise in urban poverty, including more residents seeking assistance and begging for food in public areas. Survey finds 55% of Arakanese youth unemployed amid conflict. A severe economic crisis has left 55% of young people in Arakan State unemployed, according to a local livelihood need assessment report released by the youth-led organization YLO. The assessment, published on June 22nd, collected data from 57 individuals aged 18 to 35 across 5 village tracts in Kyauktaw, Bonajun, and Sittwe Township. The report identified limited employment opportunities, a lack of vocational skills, and insufficient startup capital as the main factors contributing to high youth unemployment. Among the 45% of young people currently unemployed, economic stability remains fragile. The report found that 40% of unemployed youths earn less than 100,000 jets per month. The assessment also found that 60% of unemployed youths are working in fields unrelated to their educational backgrounds, highlighting a significant gap between skills and available employment opportunities. The YLO urged the expansion of youth-focused training programs and digital skills, language education, and basic entrepreneurship to improve access to employment opportunities. However, the report noted that poverty, high education costs, and limited access to information continue to prevent many young people from participating in vocational programs. The ongoing conflict in Arakan State has further worsened economic challenges. Junta-imposed telecommunication restrictions and prolonged internet disruptions have isolated many youths from education opportunities and employment information. To address these challenges, the YLO recommended establishing youth employment information centers in rural areas to provide job listings, vocational guidance, CV preparation support, interview training, and internship opportunities. The organization also called for financial support programs, including small grants and low-interest loans, to help young entrepreneurs establish businesses. The report emphasized that financial assistance should be accompanied by business management training, financial literacy programs, equipment access, and stronger links to regional markets and digital commerce platforms. The The YLO further imposed creating township-level community youth development networks involving village administrators, civil society organizations, community groups, relevant departments, and private sector actors. The report included that conflict, displacement, communication restrictions, and insecurity have severely limited educational and economic opportunities for Arakanese youths, leaving many facing an uncertain future. That concludes our overview of this week's defining events across Arakan State. As the situation continues to unfold, we'll be back next Tuesday to bring you the vital stories and updates shaping the region. Stay tuned and stay informed. May all people of Arakan and the world stay healthy and safe. Has reached a critical inflection point in the final week of June 2026. Between the 22nd and the 28th, the battle lines did not just tighten, they ruptured, spilling across borders and shifting the strategic weight of the entire region. Here are the key developments driving the crisis this week.